evening, everybody. I'd like to call the September 25th Board of Selectmen meeting to order. If you'd rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance in the moment of silence, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. All right. We're going to jump right in. Just before I start, Sarah is just absolutely not feeling well at all. Like most people in my family and a lot of others, the allergies are getting to her in a big way. So I hope she feels better and wish her well, as I know we all do. That said, let's start right out and go right to public comment if we could. Mr. Arsenian, please step up to the microphone.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I see you have the Open Space and Recreation Committee on the docket for a discussion later. May I make a helpful suggestion for them at that time? And may I ask several questions?
Can you make comments at that time? Yes. Several suggestions. We'll have
No,
to.
one suggestion and 3 questions.
One suggestion and 3 questions. Okay, go ahead.
Now, as
Did you
opposed-
have something now that you want to say? Do you want to
No,
reserve
I would
everything
rather
for
I
them?
would rather when you are speaking with them, it's relevant to their affairs.
That's okay.
Thank you.
I'll entertain that. That's fine. Is there anybody else for public comment? Nobody? Okay. Wow, this is going to be a quick one tonight. Let's move on to the. I know, right? Let's move right on to the interview of Glenn Alto as a member of the Finance Committee. Is there a motion?
I move that the board nominate Glenn Alto for a term on the Finance Committee to expire on May 1st, 2021.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Alto, join us, please. Whatever you're more comfortable, the podium or the table, whatever you'd like better. Most people take the table, but it's completely your choice. Yeah, get comfortable. This is only going to take a couple of hours to talk to you, so don't worry about it.
I'm looking forward to it.
Right? There you go. Well, first of all, thank you for stepping up and doing this. The town obviously thrives on people like you and volunteers that step up to do the job, so thank you for that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll open it up to the board for some questions.
Okay. Just on a personal level, I grew up in Gloucester. Got over the bridge for 30 years. And
There is life over the bridge.
There is.
Okay, good.
And have returned to Cape Ann, moving to Rockport 3 years ago. So my wife and I live on Marmion Way, 54 Marmion. And in the 3 years that we've lived here, I've made the acquaintance of several of the members of the Finance Committee socially, and they had mentioned to me that there was an opening, actually a couple of openings, on the Finance Committee, and they encouraged me to explore it. So in that process, I had an opportunity to speak with Bill Wagner, with Wally Hess. I also spent some time speaking with Mitch Vieira, trying to learn a little bit more about the position, and decided I would apply for the position. My background is in business. I'm not a municipal experience. I was the co-founder and owner of a pharmaceutical company, CEO, and have over decades of experience in either high-level vice presidential or CEO positions. In that time period, I was responsible for, of course, budgets, personnel, HR, quality control, research development, et cetera, et cetera. Most recent project we did was a $40 million construction project of a new pharmaceutical facility in Billerica. So I'm quite facile with finance matters. My skills with the typical kinds of tools like Excel, and can work that. And as I said, one of the things that became very clear to me when we moved here was the volunteerism, which is really part of the culture of this town. My wife really got started with that first. She's very active with the Rockport Art Association. It runs their volunteer program there. And so she's been on my, encouraging me, let's say, to find my position as a volunteer for the town. So I think my skill set is probably best applied in this role for Finance Committee.
Perfect. You've been attending some meetings, you've been there, and so
I've
it
been to
goes
2
on?
meetings.
All the magic?
I have, pardon me?
All the magic happening there at
Yes,
these meetings?
yes. I've been to 2 meetings, and I went to the fall town meeting as well.
Perfect.
My expectation is, if I'm approved, I want to start slow, get my toe in the water, learn from the members that are there. I make, no assumptions that I can come in and necessarily apply my business experience to what is a different kettle of fish, right? So it's a learning process, and that's part of what makes it attractive. It's an opportunity to learn some new things, work with some smart people. I respect the people that I've met on the committee, and hopefully make a contribution to the town.
I think the interjection of some new ideas and new thought processes are great. Not that we don't have great minds on there now, but, you always get a new perspective when somebody comes on, so I think it's fantastic. So thank you again.
Okay.
And with that, I'll open it up to anybody else.
Yeah,
Denise,
I have
go
some
ahead.
questions.
Sure.
First of all, I concur. Thank you very much for stepping forward. Where did you move from?
I raised my family in Westford, but I grew up in Gloucester and Riverdale.
Uh-huh. No, I'm only asking, just wondering about, schools and so forth. And as you know, one of the biggest concerns in town financially is sustaining our school system.
Yes.
And I know Westford has an excellent school system. In fact, there's a woman who was a science teacher in the Westford schools who also just retired here.
And if I might interject,
Yes.
Joe Lisi, former selectman, was here he was the principal of the Westford
Was he?
Academy for 25 years.
Wow, okay.
And I was on the school committee when
Oh,
he came to Rockport, so,
Okay.
Yeah, it really is an excellence.
Yeah,
It's a great
excellent
system, yeah.
schools.
My kids thrived there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you probably know, maybe not, I don't know what your exposure has been, but we have an excellent school system and really well-run, a really committed and engaged school committee. And I guess where I'm going with this is, I'm going to ask you a hypothetical question, which, like Judge Kavanaugh, I don't know how you're going to come down, but if you were given the choice between, approving Prop 2.5 override versus keeping taxes down, the override to fund the school budget versus keeping taxes down, which side of the fence do you see yourself on?
I'd have to understand how much of an override we were talking about, right? I think that the residents of the town are probably concerned about their tax rates. And so I can't make a blanket statement. I'd really have to understand it much more in depth and understand what the ramifications are going to be on the broader population.
Because, one of the things that I think is important to keep in mind is looking at the duties of the Finance Committee. And I think that's just, I would read the bylaws and make sure you're familiar with them. I guess another question I have for you is, how would you describe your leadership style?
It's collaborative. I always really tried to engage a broad number of my colleagues at work in decision-making. Now, I was part of a triumvirate. Okay, so there were 3 owners. We were all co-workers, and we did a management buyout. We bought the company. So the guy that ran operations, I did strategy, and the finance guy, we bought the company. And so all of our decisions were made in concert, along with a larger staff of about an additional 8 or 10 people. In addition to that, of course, you always need to solicit all your stakeholders,
Right.
whether it be inside or outside the company,
Right.
to make good decisions.
Yep. No, I think that bodes well for us. I think that's exactly the kind of attitude and, working style that would work well for us.
I'm not a proponent of autocracy. You know, no,
Yeah,
no, in
yeah.
some cases that
It-
can work. I
Yeah.
don't subscribe to it personally.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Ruthie?
Nothing, just welcome and thank you for stepping up. It's a big, big, big jump and an important committee to be on, so thank you very much.
Welcome.
I concur. Thank you.
There we go. Great. Well, thank you on behalf of all of us here. So what happens now is we'll table this till next week,
Mhm.
and we'll vote on it next week, but I think you'll have a good outcome next week. You'll be all set.
Okay.
So, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All set?
Thank you, Glenn.
Yeah, can we, let's just vote, let's finish up the motion and close it up. So the motion is on the table. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
You don't have to come back next week.
No. You're welcome to if you want. 'Cause, again, this is fascinating, as we say all the time. However, you're not required to. So thank you. Okay, let's move on to the interview of Nancy Pittman as a member of the Council on Aging. Very good. Is there a motion?
Oh, that's me. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
I move that the board nominate Nancy Pittman for a term on the Rockport Cultural Council to expire on June 30th, 2020.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, yeah, it's wrong here. Yeah, Council on Aging. Sorry.
Oh,
I
I'm
knew
sorry.
that, but I read what was here.
Apologies for the typo, yes,
Yeah.
Council on Aging.
That's okay.
It says it up here, but in the motion it says Cultural Council. Sorry about that.
Right, on the agenda, it's Council on Aging, but on the,
Yes, so it's
Motions is
a
different.
clerical error on the
yep,
motions.
no
yep.
problem. All right, so we're good? Motion's made, seconded.
Second.
Thank you very
Yep.
kindly. Nancy, why don't you join us? Whatever you like. Pardon me. Again, the standard goes, thank you for stepping up. We thrive on people like you, and it's evident in how many people and how often we do this. And sometimes it becomes, it never becomes mundane, because it's always required and always important. So thank you. Why don't you start off, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're interested.
Okay, I've been a resident of Rockport for a while. I moved away, came back again. Earlier years, I was on the Conservation Commission. I was on the school board school committee for a while. Took a different tack to my life, had to resign from that, and I started to develop a career in healthcare with the elder population. And so I became a CNA so I could get employment, and then I went to school in gerontology to get my MSW. Was working on that. I got involved with activities, which I'm doing now. I'm an activity director over at Gloucester Healthcare. And I've also got my certification as a dementia practitioner. I just love the elder population. And my mom's an elder population. She's going to be 99 in November. But she's
Good for her.
drives a little red Mitsubishi around town. She's involved in a lot of the things that go on. I've accompanied her on some of the trips and things. And I just really like the board does such a great job. I've been working with the senior care that's working on the dementia program, awareness for town. And I just think I just would like to be able to, the committee that you have now is dedicated and caring. And they all have such a great faceted of bringing a lot of different things to the board. I think I would like to bring my skills and expertise and enthusiasm and join them.
Is there one particular area that really interests you that you'd like to kind of champion, or is it just kind of an overall?
It's advocacy for the elders.
Advocacy,
Yeah.
okay.
I just, making sure their lives run smoothly and happily, which is I do every day.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Good for you. Yeah, what great work. Open it up. Ruthie?
Nothing. Thank you for stepping up. I read your resume that we got passed out, and you've done everything. You've been over at the head injury.
Yeah,
Over
brain
on Grant
injuries
Street,
on-
too,
Yeah, over on
yeah,
the farm. there
wonderful.
For a while.
Great. You'll be a great addition for the Council on Aging.
Thank you.
I'll just say you're right, it's a fantastic group, and the work that you do, I have to say, is so impressive with the limited amount of resources that you have, and I know you'll be a great addition to the group.
Nick?
My soon-to-be 90-year-old mother accesses
God bless
this
her.
group all the time, and I could tell when I call her in the morning, and she's being. She goes, Paul, I gotta leave. I gotta get a bus so I can get to the senior center for lunch. So thank you for everything you guys do, and obviously it's, you know, the elderly are a treasure in this town, and we need to continue to protect them and do all the right things that we do. So thank you.
That's great. Well, thank you. And again, you don't have to be here for next week. We'll vote on it next week on your actual appointment to it, but thank you again.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, that's
Welcome
great.
back.
All right, motion's on the table. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carries 4-0. Perfect. We're going to move on to the Selectmen briefing for open space and recreation. Step right up. Come on, just come on up to the table. That's great. And it seems to me, and I'll ask other members here, this seems to be working out rather well, I think, with everybody coming in and kind of
Oh,
reporting on.
yeah, it's
and,
great.
I mean, it really kind of keeps us in the loop of
I think
things,
so.
so.
Yeah.
Yep, so that's great. Well, thank you. Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody at home so everybody knows, and we'll,
My name is Larry Neal, Chairman of the Open Space and Recreation Committee. Wanted to point out that Stephanie Cunningham is here, Peter Vandermart, and Tom Likas.
you're welcome to join them at the table, please, by all means. We'd love to have you up there. Yep. Is that right? Please do.
And Ted Tarr is, we consider, still a member, and he's at home. And Rob Claypool, new member, he's actually in Boston today and was going to try to make it, but with the rain and traffic, it's not surprising he might be running a little late.
Sure.
But the primary thing we do, and really what our charter is to maintain the open space and recreation plan. And the plan that we did in 2009 is now expired. That plan was accepted by the state. The plan before was never accepted by the state, so 2009 was a big step. And Peter Vandermeer was on that committee from the beginning, and I joined it right at the end. We went to, they call it updating the plan. And, you know, this is the plan. It's
I
a
read it
considerable
today,
number of pieces of paper.
Right.
And so when you read through it, you know, first we were kind of trying to update it, and we kept track as time went along. You don't want to wait 7 years and then do it. I called up the state and I said, geez, you know, this really looks like we're rewriting the plan. She goes, yeah, that's really what you're doing. So that was a little bit of a setback, but we have gone through the entire plan. They give you paper in their workbook, and they tell you what needs to be updated, and it's pretty much all the sections except things like how the terrain was formed here and things like that. So we've been working on this, and now we have it in draft form, and we have 2 hard copies, and one of them is up in the town clerk's office, and one's down at the library if people would like to look at them. And it's available on the Open Space website electronically. And it's nice to see it printed, but if you look at this, and I'm obviously not going to go through this whole plan, on October 4th, we're having a meeting for just the review of the plan, but there's a considerable number of tables and charts in here that look like this, and it's every piece of property in Rockport and what it is, public, private. And the beauty when you do this electronically is, of course, you can expand the chart and look at it. So we encourage people to look at it electronically, plus these cost $35 a piece to print.
Larry, is that something that has to be approved by the state? or-
Yeah, I can go through that. What we're looking for is, after October 4th, we have not done the goals. The goals are from the old plan. A lot of them will probably be the same because they tend to be kind of general. But after the meeting we have, then we go and we do the end of the plan, which is identify all the goals, action items, and that type of thing. It gets distributed to all the committees, most of the committees, and we need comments from the committees. And I say that because we don't need approval. If a committee wants to approve it, great. But who holds the approval is the state, as you described. So they're looking for the plan, they're looking for the committee, and there's 5 or 6 committees they have to have comments from, planning board, selectmen, Comcom. When they get it, then they decide whether to approve it or not. And last one that was submitted was approved on receipt. They called us back in 2 days and said it was approved, which was pretty amazing, really, because we had no consultants or any of that type of thing like most committees.
What state agency is it that approves it?
It's under the DEP, and I forget their exact name. I think it's DCR. I think she works for, she works for the state.
It's a sub-agency to the Department of Conservation and Recreation, and it's really just one individual who deals with the open space plans and the approval and
It
I
makes
can't
it
remember
good
what the
because you can actually
subgroup
call
is.
someone and talk to them.
Right.
Yeah.
You have one point,
Individual.
you have one person.
Whoop. So, anyway,
Larry, can I just ask you a question? if I
yeah,
may?
go ahead.
What's the significance of the state approving it? Why does the state approve it?
You can do the plan that's probably as valuable to action items in the town unapproved. Doesn't really make any difference.
Yeah.
The value of having it done is several of the grants, you have to have this plan approved, else you can't apply for them to do with land.
Okay.
And those are both, if you think of conventional open space, like, places out in the woods, and parks.
Okay.
Because there's a land grant and the park grant. And the thing, after we've done this, Rob actually joined the committee, and one of our concerns, I have to say, Peter does all these charts and graphs, and they really are great. It makes the plan visual.
We have the double benefit with Rob having been on Concom.
And,
So that's
and Rob was on the Comcom, and when he came on, one of the issues we have is when you send out surveys, which there's a new survey in here. It's funny you mentioned the schools. Well, out of a list of things of what do you think's, why do you live in Rockport and what do you enjoy living here? Out of 20 things, 15 things, schools came out dead last. And if you think about it, it's probably not completely surprising. 250 people filled out this survey approximately. They get 3 choices, and only 9 check marks went for the schools were important. The top of it is ocean environment. That type of thing, walkable town, that. But not a lot of young people fill out these surveys. And with the population in the town, and the state has a similar report, and they've noticed the same thing. The population is getting older, the activities are shifting, and the interests are shifting. And so Rob invited, we were thinking about it, and one thing that really struck us is, I don't know who knows this, but Rockport Little League doesn't play in Rockport anymore. They play in Gloucester. So now, me growing up
when?
here, I was pretty surprised, okay?
And it becomes
when did
Cape
that-
Ann Little League.
Yeah, when did that happen?
The games are played in Manchester, Essex, and
Gloucester.
O'Malley School.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so we decided, geez, because you got to remember, it's open space and recreation. Some people miss the second beat there. And so Rob invited Bill, I think his name's Whitley, came in. He's a 4th grade teacher.
Phil
and he's-
Whitley.
Bill.
Phil Whitley.
Bill, yeah.
Phil.
Phil, okay.
Phil Whitley.
And he's a 4th grade teacher, has 4 kids involved with Little League. So he came in and told us what was happening with Little League, which was really enlightening. And Rob has kind of taken this on. And what we want to do, and it isn't in this report, but it will be, is we're collecting data on the kids' sports. And this is my very coarse way of looking at it. You've got less kids, you've got more programs, and greater regulations. So it seems like a lot of the playing fields aren't usable for the sport anymore, or they at least don't meet the current requirements. And he is working, and I don't know if she's mentioned it, or she isn't here, Sarah Wilkinson is part of that group. And I think they've had one meeting, and we've asked, when they understand what their mission is and what they're trying to accomplish, if they would, kind of drop that on us. And then Rob has contacted 3 other people to get their input that he told us to contact. And they have numbers of the kids playing the different sports. But I guess there's no track and field team, there's no cross-country team anymore.
Well, there's a cooperative with our school.
Regionalized, right?
Yeah.
So are you saying that the field space is down because of the lack of numbers?
The field space?
In terms of, we're not utilizing the fields we should be?
Well, he gave us an example, they, like Evans Field, they had a Little League diamond and a Big League diamond.
Yep.
Well, when they changed to the metal bats, now the kids, when they're playing on the big diamond, can hit down to the Little League diamond. So before the teams could play together, this was probably quite a few years,
Yeah,
and
the
then
bats
all
are-
of a sudden you
I
can't.
I even played in the early 70s with aluminum bats, so it's
Yeah,
been a long time.
and I don't know about this stuff. What they've done is they've tried to take the bang out of the bat, because this is happening in other places. So they're trying to reduce, he said they did reduce how far the ball will go. But for those that remember Evans Field from a long time ago, and I don't remember when in the 70s, the Little League diamond was kind of facing the other way.
Right.
And I don't know if that made a difference or not. We don't have answers to any of these things, but some of the fields have been converted to softball and they don't have a pitching mound. That's an issue. The spacing on the bases. The scheduling, he didn't seem to understand how that works at the big level, because they would schedule a field and go there and someone else was using it for a different situation. And they had gone
That's
through.
administrative, though.
Exactly,
We
exactly.
can take care of that.
But anyway, there's a lot here.
Are you gonna be looking at ways to repurpose, reutilize, change things around as far as the usage of the fields?
I think
Because,
that-
I mean, I'm sorry, Larry, when we talk about attracting younger families,
Right.
the biggest component, as far as I'm concerned, is the school system.
Of course.
That's the biggest. Second are going to be the programs that will attract those families for
Sure.
those after-school activities, which my kids have participated in for years.
Yeah.
And I understand what you're saying. I mean, my daughter plays soccer down at Evans every Saturday, and my kids have played baseball there and everything else. But I think you're right that when I watch a game, especially the bigger kids that play, and you see, the right fielder up on the mound up top, it's kind of strange to see that, but it's what we have.
Right, right.
So is part of what you're going to do be to look at this with a different perspective to maybe change things and make recommendations?
We were asking him, is that what Sarah's group is trying to do? And he said, they're more, he didn't really know, because they're too early into it. It needs to be looked at
Without a doubt.
strategically by people who understand youth sports.
Well, I think what needs to happen, if we're going to go that route, is we need to involve John Parisi, the athletic director.
He was
and
one of the
high-
people
yeah, high
listed.
school principal and the elementary school principals and so forth, and other, youth groups, the FRA and so forth, and,
Yeah,
But
Absolutely.
when I drive around the town, I see these athletic fields being used all the time, which is great. I think
It
that's
is.
awesome.
It is.
And I know you guys support that as well.
yeah, and there's just a lot here. The first thing I think people are trying to do is grasp where we are with all this. And then you get to, where do you want to be?
Yeah, and I think our goal for this, completing the report, to get it ready and send it to the state, is to get feedback from that group that's already starting to look at the situation. And what we'll do is we'll formulate a goal. So it probably will be that we don't have all the answers yet, but we could have a discrete goal that says, we're looking at this, we've got some recommendations, and this is how we're gonna move forward. Because if we can establish need in our plan, then that could potentially open us up to some grant opportunities, because we have it documented in a state-approved plan that, all right, there's a real need here. Rockport looked at their situation, they've looked at what they want to do, what they plan on doing, and then when you apply for the grant, you're saying, look, we've established it, now we would like the money to do it. So I don't think we'll have a lot of answers, but we'll have a lot of the questions at least established so that we can get that done.
That's great.
In
And
document.
have you, I'm sorry, I'm completely lost my train of thought. I had a great question too. You would have loved it. I'm sorry, I'll pass on that one. I'll come back to Denise, please.
Yeah,
go
I have a
ahead.
couple questions,
Yeah.
not related to sports fields, if that's okay. So
Yeah.
I did look this over today. What a huge amount of work. Just so impressive and really fascinating to read. So thank you for your hard work. One question I had was, you said that the Harbor Light affordable housing development is being challenged?
There's a lot of pages in there.
It's on
and we
page
might have wrote that.
19.
And this is why we constantly review. I guess I
Yeah.
can't,
page-
wasn't that the, what's being challenged is, I know, is where Silver Brothers,
Right, that's
Uh,
the Harbor Light.
yeah, that's being challenged, isn't it?
In court?
Is it going ahead? Last I knew, it was being challenged by the neighborhood.
Nope, the neighborhood's really in support of it.
Good.
Yeah, the money
That's
got
good.
approved.
Yep.
The CPC money got approved at the last town meeting. Okay, good. I just
Good.
wondered if there was something I missed
No, we probably
Okay.
wrote that maybe a year ago.
before.
right,
Yeah,
before.
okay. I have other
Go
detailed
right ahead,
questions.
go ahead.
Sure,
Yeah,
okay.
go ahead.
You mentioned something about the town looking into a sewer overlay district. Is that taken on life again, do you know, or?
It did recently when I was in the COMCOM, because the house, on Pigeon Hill Street, Johnson Road,
Mm-hmm.
wasn't in that overlay, but I don't think they have passed an overlay district yet.
No,
No.
okay.
But that requirement, and again, I'm not an expert with the DPW, but I think that was a spin-off from the state, because we had water issues. And I think we were under a ban where they couldn't build
Right.
houses.
Right.
And I think, and I wrote in the report someplace, I interviewed Joe, and the ban had been lifted, they
Right.
could go ahead.
Right.
But they were highly encouraged, I don't know what that means, to get a sewer overlay district.
But nothing's happened with that for a while. It
No,
came
but
up.
we've
yeah.
agreed to talk with the planning
With the
board
DPW.
and with the DPW.
Yeah, okay.
To formulate that plan to kind of come together. on
Okay.
it. And that'd be something, I know we have DPW coming up next month.
It's actually booked already, the 16th.
Sewer overlay or DPW? Specifically?
Sewer overlay specifically, it's half Long Beach
Oh, good.
infrastructure and half sewer overlay.
Fantastic,
Perfect.
okay.
Perfect, good,
Again, I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything.
great.
Okay, and then, I'm sorry to put you on the spot, Larry.
That's
One,
okay.
one more question.
I'm
In
getting
the-
old, my memory ain't that
Yeah.
great.
In the introduction, there's a whole section about, most recently, the town and Essex County Greenbelt have worked to protect several parcels of conservation land. And then it says, those include the Cape Hedge Beach Overview, the Steve Johnson Landing Quarries on Pigeon Hill Street.
Yeah, that's Essex Greenbelt holds the conservation
They do?
restriction.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Again, it's in the works,
Oh,
which
okay.
only takes like 2 years or
Yes,
something
yes,
to
yes.
do.
Okay,
Yeah,
I wasn't
they have
aware.
They've agreed, that's part of when you get CPC money,
Yeah,
you have to have a third party.
right.
So we
Right.
approach, we.
Fantastic,
them
okay.
On that.
That was news to me. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
That's it? That wasn't bad.
That's it for now.
Actually, my question, it came back to me, not as fascinating as I thought. When is the plan due to be submitted, and then how long does it take to be approved after that?
Well, last time it only took them 2 days.
Perfect.
But they did it verbally. And then they gave us the letter maybe a month later. Well, our target is to try to do it by January,
Okay.
because, again, the advantage of having it approved is if you want to go for grants, and the grant cycle is usually in the spring. So it'd be
Okay.
good to be in a position, if we have nothing in mind to go after at this point, but, this playing field thing is all new. I have done some, maybe you can speak to that a little bit of reading. And sports are funny when it comes to open space. They don't want to they're not gonna support a stadium. But like a youth soccer field is pretty undisturbing to it's just basically a field.
Right.
That kind of thing, they do look at open space sometimes. But
They do, and one of the programs in particular really looks at handicapped accessibility issues. So if the town was looking at improving some of the fields, there's a potential to also address handicapped accessibility as part of a improvement to a particular field. And
We do have the ramp that we're looking at down here at Evans Field, which is nice.
That we just got approved at
Yeah.
CPC.
Yeah, so which is great.
Really?
So, so that's great. So it'll be great access down there. Nice wide ramp, a landing area up
Yeah.
top, all ADA compliant.
right,
Yeah, so
have
it'll
they
be
got a
great.
grant for that?
Nice.
I'm sorry?
Do they apply for a grant for that of any kind?
CPC.
Just got awarded.
There was
I
CPC.
mean,
DPW is picking up some of it, and then and CPC is picking up the rest.
Good.
nice.
I'll get you, Toby.
I have a question.
Ruthie, please.
And just to follow up on the group that Sarah's working with, they're trying to gather information to come to CPC to write an application for CPC for this,
Okay.
for next year, for improving all of the athletic fields in town and upkeep of
Good.
improving all of them. They really need a lot of work, so.
Yeah, I mean, I go up to Evans Field, quite frequently, and I noticed the Little League diamond was all weeds. I was just like, it doesn't look like anyone uses this, I mean, I didn't even think no one was using this. It was just not, because the other diamond is always well capped, and there's always people there turning the dirt over and everything.
Yeah, but I think if you went back there in April and May, when the little leagues are going,
Yeah.
it would be,
Yeah, I
quite
don't
used a
know.
lot.
I was there I can't say. I was there at least in June, and,
Yeah.
and the place.
well, they end in the beginning of June, I think, when school
Yeah.
this is the little kids would, they would be playing at that diamond versus, the town team and junior
Right,
league and Babe Ruth.
right.
I think that's one of the biggest issues that we have, is that we have these great projects in town that we can put forward and we can execute on, which is great. However, the long-term follow-up is really where the rubber meets the road, because
Sure.
you can get it done, no problem, we'll put the money out there, but then you gotta maintain the field. You don't
Yeah.
want weeds growing on second base, So you have to make sure we do these things the right way, and I think it's true with any parks in town, and that's really, that's where I focus my attentions to is, sorry, my son's calling me from college. But anyway, so I think that's a great thing. Well, you have anything else?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you, guys.
Anybody
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
We did have some questions. Toby, if you could take the podium and address your questions through the chair, please.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I had 3 questions. How much money do we have in the land bank, and when did we last put money into it? And how much do we have in the community preservation designated account for open space and recreation?
We're not the money people. That's the COMCOM. But I think, wasn't $100,000 put into the
Was
town
allotted for.
meeting?
Yeah.
Correct.
I think when they
Correct.
bought Woodland Acres, they went to pretty much zero.
Right.
Because we had a $25,000 or so outstanding bill for conservation restriction with Essex Greenbelt, and they allowed us to push that out until we could make the payment. I don't know if we even ever have.
We can get numbers for you, but I think we need to address them to the right people.
I think those would be an essential part of any open space plan, how much we have. I mean, I understand your enthusiasm for grants, and to some extent I share it, but we also need to help ourselves. And, the open space isn't going to be bought with my charm or your good looks. It's going to be bought with money. So would you like the helpful suggestions or not?
We're always open to suggestions, Toby.
Yes. Well, about a year and a half, perhaps as much as 2 years ago, the planning board invested some energy in looking at the coastal lots, the ones that were deemed unbuildable. This was a result of the great flap over in East Gloucester when somebody wished to build on stilts along Atlantic Road. And the planning board thought that they should look at all the coastal lots to see whether the lots needed more protection. And Terry Duffy did the survey, and I'm not sure quite how he came up with the list of the lots, whether he simply took the ones that the assessors have listed as unbuildable, or whether he added others. I believe he added others. I don't approve of that. When they were done with the survey and decided that they didn't need to go on with zoning changes on the basis of it, I asked them if they would give the survey to the Open Space and Recreation Committee in the hopes that they might follow up on it. Numbers of these lots, if they are actually unbuildable, the people who own them might be willing to part with them, as the woman did with what is now called Sandpiper Park. So that seemed to me a good suggestion, and the planning board said flat out no. I told them that I could have a copy of it if I was prepared to pay for it and give it to the Open Space and Recreation Committee, and we had a minor row about that. Actually, I was in the right. If something is produced at an open meeting, anyone who's there, anyone has a right to it. So would the Open Space and Recreation Committee, I can't address them directly, ask the planning board for that survey?
I think, listen, that's up to them to do that. I'm not going to sit here and dictate to them what their policy should be. If they decide that that's beneficial to their research and what they'd like to do, that's fine. But I think that's more a subject to be brought up with the planning board, rather than the Board of Selectmen. I or anybody here, I don't think, will direct them to do that. If they think that's advisable and that's what they'd like to do, then by all means, they're welcome to do that. But it won't come as a directive from the Board of Selectmen.
No, it couldn't. It might come as a suggestion. You can't order them, but you can ask or suggest just as I can, and your word carries a lot more weight than mine, obviously. The other helpful suggestion, going back a couple of years, I know that the Open Space and Recreation Committee sent out letters to all of the people who owned woodlots in the watersheds with a suggestion that they might consider parting with them. And sadly, they got, from what Mr. Neal told me at the time, they got no responses, none. There are reasons why people won't part with the woodlots. They're typically assessed at 1/10 the value of buildable lots, and also the town is constrained on what it can pay for any land, whether it's houses or lots. It has to be in terms of the assessed value. And since the assessed values are so low, there would be no reason why the people who own the woodlots would see any interest in selling them for a pittance to the town. But if the town were able from the state to get dispensation, an act from the...
I don't want to rush you, Toby, but is there a question in here somewhere?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Will you, because it would have to be you, your board, not the Open Space and Recreation Committee, consider asking the state for dispensation to pay more than what is legally allowed under state rules based on the assessed value for the watershed lots for the open space lots in the watersheds, so that if we had the opportunity, anyone were willing to sell the lots, we could offer the owners prices that might be tempting, rather than something that would just be an insult.
Well, taking you at your word on that, Toby, and I'm not saying...
Wow, I don't know how we would do that.
Well, if it's a matter of state law and what we're capped by, it would take
I
legislation.
think we have to go by state law.
Right, it would take legislation to change that. Right, and if that's something that is deemed advisable, and that's a course of action that would be advisable to the town and provided benefit, then perhaps that would be somewhere we would go. However, I don't know exactly what that would be, and I definitely don't have enough information on that right now to go.
Yeah, I think we're going down a
Yeah, it's a little bit of a rabbit hole
Yeah,
right now,
yeah.
so that's it.
Anyway,
I'll allow one more, please. Did you have a question? Yes.
I'm Peter Vandermark, and I have been on the Open Space Committee since the very beginning, and I've been the map and database person. And this meeting has shown me that there's two potentially new maps. One, to really emphasize the recreation facilities. I don't think that we do that right now. And the other is if we can get the list that Toby just talked about, then emphasize those lots. But I also wanted to mention, I do not remember who it was, but there was somebody that came to the committee saying, we want to make a grant application. Is the open space plan in force? And we had to tell them no, so they were not able to make that grant application. So that gave us some additional impetus to get the plan done, because it had expired.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody have anything else?
thank you.
I think
Thank
it's
you,
been
everyone.
great, thank you. And,
Thank you.
you know, these are the kind of things that if you if you feel it's advisable of what you heard from Toby or from us or anybody else, please, we're here to help you in your efforts. We are not here to micromanage your activities. We're here to help you and assist you, so I want to make that really clear. If you deem it necessary and that would be beneficial, please, by all means, reach out to the planning board, get what you need and go on that. And then if you see something that you can involve us in, we're here for you.
Thank you.
We're here for you. And thank you, every one of you, for what you do. We really appreciate it. And thank you for the
I'd just
update.
like to extend the invitation to everybody that there is the meeting on October 4th, next Thursday night at 7 PM at the public library, and we'll be talking more about the plan, and we'll be presenting the results from the survey, and we'll be soliciting comments.
Well, one thing
so
I forgot to mention.
It would be nice.
I'm glad you.
Larry, just pull in closer to the mic if you don't mind.
Carolyn McWilliams from the junior high, middle school, to get more information from young people. She's giving all the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders a survey
Love it.
and asked them to fill it in.
You're going right to the source. I
And you-
love it.
And
Love it.
you went to the
Friends of Rockport Athletics, and we've recirculated the survey to
Oh,
the
good.
parents, hoping to get a bigger slice of the younger.
I would also
families.
suggest that you talk to Rob Lebo so he
Yeah.
can send an email out to the entire district. So you're not just getting one group of people. You
Yeah.
get all 1,000, whatever families we have.
And things like that are exactly why you don't need us meddling. You know what you're doing. So have at
Yeah,
it
exactly.
Thank you.
and let us know. Thank you.
Thank
so
you very much.
Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
All right. Well, that was great. That really was. I love hearing these and what's going on with these. Let's move on. We have 3. We're good. Let's move on to the approval of minutes.
I move that the Selectmen approve the minutes of September 11th, 2018.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded. Everybody, any additions, subtractions, changes? Everybody good? Ruthie, you all set with them?
Yep, fine.
Nope, I'm good.
We're good?
Great, thank you.
Okay, great. And the motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries 3-0. Thank you, very kindly. Let's go to, and I want to kind of, we'll jump in, but I want Denise back here because Denise always has some great stuff to share. Let's move on to the Selectmen updates and liaison reports. Who's first? Ruthie, ladies first.
Okay, I went last week after the Selectmen's meeting, I went to the week before, I went to the Economic Development Committee meeting, which was very interesting, my first meeting of that. Just looking at a lot of things, trying to figure out what they could focus on for this year. And then today, I went to the Mass Municipal Selectmen's meeting, which was at Danversport this morning, for a breakfast meeting, which was very interesting. The keynote speaker was Jay Ash, who's the Housing and Economic Development person, and he's looking to come out to all the communities. He'd like to come out to Rockport, so it would be very nice to have him come out and for Rockport to sort of look at. He said the key is to have them. He would come out and or his associate and look at the economic opportunities for Rockport, but for us to sort of have 3 different things that we were looking at. One could be that one that the planning board is looking at up at Whistle Stop Mall. One could be sort of the tool company area. One could be, his big thing is looking at downtown areas that can be redeveloped and to get more mixed use in different areas. The other presentation they had was a 40R in downtown Danvers that is looking at several of their areas along the main street of downtown Danvers and having mixed use down there and having older housing, bungalow styles, condos for young people. And his big thing was that if you don't have a young population moving into your town is going to die. And it really was true. It was very interesting. I really think that, and being on the Economic Development Committee, we really need to get someone like that out here to look at what we can do in Rockport to bring small businesses. They gave an example of one small town, can't remember the name of it. I think it was in Orange, Mass, that had a building that was converted into all kinds of shops that now has 50 different shops in it, each with four employees or more. So there's 200 people working in that.
That's great.
Very small little things that could come to Rockport, come to a small coastal area. So it was very interesting and very enlightening. It was a very good meeting to go to, and so those are my reports.
I think, to jump on that as well, for what you said, that would work well with what the planning board said when they came in, as far as what they're looking to do up at the transfer station, that land they have up there. So maybe
Right.
there's something that could work in concert. So I think that's
Yeah.
great. And we need that. I mean, and you have it every year. You have the turnover of stores, and you see open
Right.
open storefronts stuff, and you don't want them open. You want
Right.
them filled up with people
Yeah.
and everything being vibrant. So, but I think that's a great way to
And,
go.
and Jay Ash was very, has different programs that they will come in and they will help you find people for your storefronts.
Does that, now, would that, did he say, would that work through us, or the planning board, or, and it's a joint effort? How would that
A
work?
joint effort,
A
to have
joint
him
effort.
come in and have things lined up, and he would come in and do a tour of the town. And we would show him different areas that we were looking at, or that we had thoughts about, and see what he could do with matching funds and different monies that would be available. It just sounded like such a perfect thing for the town. It really did.
So how do we?
And he is the secretary under Baker, but he lives in Danvers. He's a local guy. He's on the outskirts of Cape Ann, so he's interested in helping out in these areas. And another person I networked with was, what was his last name? He's from Rockport. He lived here for a long time, and his name is, he's a Topsfield selectman, John Spencer. Lived for a long time, built one of the first houses up in Doctor's Run. And he was very interested in what was happening in Rockport and stuff. So I think there's a lot of people we could network with that would help bring some renewed interest into getting some young families here and getting some buildings that were condos that young people would want to live in, to come here, and especially be on the rail line of up by the train station and commuting into town or commuting into Beverly and to some of the big areas, but wanting to live in the suburbs.
Right.
So it was very interesting.
There is a major problem. The fact that we are, no, it's not a major problem, but it is an issue that we're out here. It's a destination town.
Yeah.
It's going to take, people want to purposely move to Rockport and deal with the commute and so forth. I know when my parents moved to Rockport in '62, people at the newsroom in the Boston Globe thought my father was crazy commuting an hour every day, but it was an easy hour. And
Was that
Those days.
Was it the old 128? Was it
Yeah.
not even 128?
Yeah, it was just finished. Yeah,
128.
yeah. So
Yeah,
I
no
mean,
kidding.
but it was never a problem for him, and I think you're right. Ruthie brought up the fact that the commuter rail goes to Rockport. I'd like to see a few more trains,
Yep.
especially during rush hour. But we got to get some young families here more. Because I think it's an important thing so that the town can grow.
Right.
And I think we've done some good things in Rockport in the last 10 years to encourage it. And I know the park and ride is way above than it was last year. So people are coming to the festivals that we have and so forth. Hopefully those people will translate into moving to Rockport.
I think that, like when Toby asked a little bit ago, can I offer some suggestions? We're always open to suggestions. And I think if you can get somebody like that to jump in here and see it with a different perspective, and then not only that, but have the clout behind it to actually execute at that point, just everybody in town benefits from this. And it's a great thing. And I would love to see it. I mean, how do we make that happen? I love talking about things, but I love acting on them more than I love talking about them. So how do we do that? Is that something that, Mitch, you could reach out to Mr. Ash and?
We can certainly reach out to their office. We also have a very good rapport. She's actually also a Rockport resident with the regional director of the Mass Office of Business Development, which functions under Secretary Ash, Maria DiStefano. She lives in town, and she is a great connection, and that's usually our interaction with his office. So we can certainly reach out
Yep.
and see what we can do to arrange a visit.
I can't see a town, honestly, on the North Shore that is more ripe for this kind of an endeavor than Rockport. You know, as far as EDC, it's a great committee, but I think their outlook is a little too scattered, and it needs to be kind of reined in a little bit and really given focus. And if this is one of those things that could possibly provide that. Denise?
Yeah, I was just going to suggest that I think one of the challenges that we've had, even if we get focus from the state and access to grants, is finding that public-private partnership and getting the funds that are going to be needed from somebody who wants to develop the property. So, for example, the transit-oriented development up at Whistle Stop Mall is a great idea, but you need a developer, even with matching funds from the state. So one of the suggestions I would have is when we have that conversation, to include somebody like, I've had already talked to him about this, Harry Korsland, who's a local commercial banker, and this is what he does, is connect people who want to develop properties with the properties and, you know, the interested parties. So I think we can't leave that party out of the conversation, because otherwise it's just us kind of fantasizing about what could be.
And I completely, and that's a great segue into I don't want to, did you have anything else? I don't want to.
Nope.
Okay. That's a great segue into what I was going to bring up, because Mitch and I, and we've been trying to coordinate a time with Bruce and Ann Margaret to come in. So if we get everybody on board, and Bruce and Ann Margaret coming in here, and I'll leave it to everybody here to say, that meeting is probably going to happen within a month, I would say. Is that, did we confirm
I
a
would
date
say
yet?
we're still finalizing end of November.
End of November.
November,
Okay,
yes.
perfect. So what I would like to see with this is to have a list of questions, no more than 3, I would say, maybe 4 at max, that will be done beforehand. So maybe everybody could start thinking along those lines of what you'd like to do. One of the questions that I have, which is very basic, is how do we set up a open lines of communication between us and the senator and the representative to make sure that Rockport's getting its unfair share and doing everything that we can, because this is a perfect example of having, Mr. Ash come in and working with Bruce and Ann to find funding sources, and then finding those things that you're talking about to work on that partnership, where maybe it's provided to the owners of Whistle Stop to say, hey, here's some sort of a tax incentive, and then it takes on a life of its own. So I would love to see that. So please, if everybody would, and I know Sarah knows about this, start thinking about what you'd like to ask. We'll submit it, we'll boil it down, give it to them in advance, and then go from there.
If I just may, one more suggestion, and, we have seen, and I've lived here all my life, we've seen a lot of people coming into town and buying these year-round houses and using them for summer houses. And that trend is clearly on the upbeat, and it has been for a while. There are communities, and I think this is something that we need to, I'm not 100% advocating for this, but it's something that needs to be looked at. Stowe, Vermont, if you don't live there year-round, you pay an additional tax on, to live there and to have that piece of property. So, maybe if the school population continues to plummet and people are coming in and buying these year-round houses and only living here a couple months, but granted, we get the tax revenue on the property taxes, but maybe we look at something like that for additional revenue, and I know it may not be popular, but it's something that needs to be looked at.
I think with the already predicted financial times we have coming up in this town, that everything needs to be looked at.
Yeah.
Everything is on the table.
Yep.
So we'll go from there.
Yep.
So I have a couple more, and then I'm all set. I'll go with the fascinating one.
Always one of my favorites.
Right? Get your popcorn, here we go. Selectman Campbell signed the payroll warrant number 12 totaling $115,151.55, and expense warrant number 12 totaling $907,450.66 on September 19th, 2018. I also it's kind of light. I haven't had a whole lot of meetings to attend, and I want to start going to some of the other stuff that even aren't as my assignments. Denise, you do a great job at that, too, about attending a lot of these things, so kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
But I do have spies out there, and my spies are reporting back. So on the Thatcher Island Committee and the Thatcher Island Association, and they run that meeting with both there. There's some good stuff going on there, and I got to tell you that I blow a little smoke to them all the time, and they deserve it because they work so well together. I won't bore you with a bunch of numbers, but to date there has been 1.1 million, a little over 1.1 million, spent on improvements to Straitsmith Island, with the largest source of funds being the Manton Foundation. The other sources of the Thatcher Island Association, CPC, of course, Audubon Association. And Rockport Town Meeting gave the approval for $31,700 to Thatcher Island Association. Maritime Society has given $1,350 for the footbridge. So my point with this is there are so many sources of income that they're bringing in, and they're really exploring everything. I think it's great that they're so proactive in this and going out to finding these things. So good for them.
A great job.
Yeah, they really do. And that's what I have. Murph, you have anything?
I'm good. Nope.
We're good?
I just
Perfect.
have, if
Yeah,
I may,
please, go
just
right
one
ahead.
little shout out. I actually did not attend the meeting last night. I wanted to, but life interfered. But the Green Communities Task Force met last night. And my understanding is that they're moving forward. They've got to expend the remaining $15,000 in the grant, the original grant they received, by the end of this year in order to qualify for the next round of funding next year. Is that right, Tom? So that's going to happen. So good news. They've worked very hard to get to this point, and that'll be great because that makes us eligible as a town, and the task force eligible for the next level of funding, which is more money. So that's a good thing.
And I did have one more thing, and I can't believe I forgot this, but I'm glad I remembered. I want to clear something up, because at town meeting I spoke.
Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. I spoke about licenses being in hearings and if I gave the perception that it was to the particular licenses, I apologize for that. That's not what I meant. What I meant is that to get these onto the town warrant, this was all done in public. This was not done behind closed doors. It had nothing to do with licenses. There have been no hearings with anybody regarding specific licenses. This is only just to get them on, so everybody, anybody that expresses an interest, which there was an interest expressed, we agreed with that. We saw that there was a need there potentially, and we went on all of the available routes. So if I confused, then I apologize. It wasn't meant to infer that anybody was given particular preference over anybody. It was merely that the process of obtaining the licenses from the selectman standpoint or from the town standpoint is what I was addressing, not the individual proprietors. Okay? So I hope that clarifies. And with that, take it away, Mitch, for the town administrator report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have several updates for you this evening. The town is very fortunate to be in receipt of, I believe it is 8 portraits from Jason Grow. He reached out to us. He had a display last year. These beautiful photos of veterans from Cape Ann, and they're quite large. And I believe that it's 8 or 9 from Rockport. And
Rockport residents?
Yes, Rockport
nice,
residents,
nice.
and how they've
Portraits,
served.
pictures or paintings?
Pictures
Pictures,
of them.
okay.
And we have those upstairs. We're just working with DPW to get them hung. We're going to hang them in the entrance to the handicap ramp.
Nice.
That large white wall there that needs something. That's
Needs
the
life.
perfect spot for it.
Awesome.
They look perfect. They're in beautiful frames. So we're very thankful for Jason for donating those to the town, and they'll have a great home at the entrance to the building.
Perfect.
So we're thrilled for that. Something very exciting. We were able to secure a intern for HR for this semester. I'm very excited about that. A lot of the little projects that have been on hold on a few things, this person will be able to take on, so they'll be in Thursdays and Fridays every week now through the end of December. She actually, the intern, spent the summer with us working in the cultural district. So she's familiar in town, so we're excited to have her join us upstairs in the Selectmen's office to carry out some HR projects for us, do a lot of research, and get some work moving in a few areas for us.
That's going to help out.
Very, very exciting. Very, very exciting. The Granite Pier staircase is in, so if you haven't had a chance to stop by Granite Pier, it looks fantastic.
I wish they wouldn't have these things in I love it. It's the middle of the day. You know? Like, I want to come.
Lunch
I
was
love
great.
going
There were
there.
lobster rolls. It was quite the
Oh,
festivity.
Oh, okay, no, all right, no, that's
It really, it
really
came
know
out.
how to add salt to the wound.
There we go. It really came out very well. It was hard to visualize as they were picking
Yeah.
things apart over there, but definitely take some time if you haven't had a chance yet to stop by and take a look. It's a job
I've
well
driven
done.
by. I haven't walked the stairs yet.
Oh, they're fantastic. So please
That's
do
good.
stop by.
Good.
Two MBTA related items. We received notice today from the state that they'll be issuing a press release shortly that new updated T schedules will be going into effect October 22nd. So two of them are minor updates that affect the Rockport line. Actually, some accommodations to
Additional?
help. Not additional, no
Yeah.
tweaks to current trains to help improve their on-time performance numbers. So they'll be issuing some press releases on that very shortly, but they sent us a courtesy notice today. So I'm sharing that out now. Be on the lookout for some updated schedules going into effect October 22nd.
I would like to see, and I've stated this numerous times, a couple more trains during the week and one or two during the weekend.
And that may be
That's not going to happen anytime soon, I'm sure.
but maybe a perfect thing for when the senator and the representative
Yeah.
come in.
Yeah.
They would be a perfect.
Definitely.
And along those lines, the other thing is, don't hurt us this summer. If they're going to do something, don't
Yeah.
come at us this
Do
summer.
it this time.
Like,
Yeah.
do it
Yeah,
now.
right,
Do
do
it
it
now.
now.
Explain it. Don't
Agreed.
hurt us this
Yeah.
summer. It doesn't work. So.
Agreed. So the other item for the MBTA, after quite a bit of back and forth, we received some communication from the chief operating officer's assistant, Jeff Gonneville's assistant, relating to the letter that the board sent along, particularly relating to the crane. And they have two items that they asked that I convey to the board to consider. So they've read the letter. They're aware of the situation with it. So they have offered to paint the structure. They don't have money. They've indicated they don't have money to refurbish it. They're willing to put a fresh coat of paint on the crane to make it look better.
Seriously?
Yes, that was one of their offers. I said I'm not sure what value that may add, but I will certainly convey that to the selectmen if there's an interest.
Now I can't wait to hear the second one.
And they said they're willing to put up a nice fence around it with a plaque
Oh.
delineating the historical significance of it.
That would be fantastic. Not.
No.
So
Oh.
I told them I was not overly optimistic, but that I would convey those two things to the board.
Did we, as far as moving it, they're not,
Those were the two items.
So they're
Paint it
may
and
I-
put a fence around it.
good.
So their own study, which is where I got the information in that letter,
Yep.
indicated that these are not just the crane, but the freight house are structures of historical significance.
Correct.
So I would refer them back to their own study. Putting a coat of paint on something without understanding the historical value of it and whether that even is a good idea. A plaque would be great, but I think it's the way the crane is now, it's actually kind of dangerous.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I did convey that we based it off of their information.
Yeah.
They felt that was a compromise to do something in that particular area. I'm not sure that there's any value on any of those. My concern about the fence would be that it
Yeah.
would become permanent, and then that's going to deteriorate. It's going to become kind of a.
But one of the
a
whole
dumping
points is to
ground in there.
improve access to Evans Field, to get down there, to increase parking, to make things easier to transit down there. I mean, and the crane being there is just not helping that.
Well,
Correct.
actually, my thought was more just to create, when people arrive in Rockport by train, to create kind of historical context.
Mhm.
Because you're arriving at the town where all the granite was shipped from, and the crane and the freight house were where the granite passed through. And it's an opportunity to kind of set the context so that when you get off the train, you understand a little bit about where you are and land, and they own those pieces of property.
So what's your idea to do that, I
Well, I
guess?
think they should restore the freight house, because otherwise it's gonna rot into nothing. And maybe, I don't know how people would feel about this, but move the crane maybe over near to the freight house.
Right.
So that
Put 'em
it's sort of
together.
a historical piece.
I'd be better with it anywhere except where it is
Yeah.
right now.
Right.
But just letting them both there rot, you know, when you read that report, it's pretty clear that there's a long history associated with both of those.
Yeah.
So maybe this is something we add to our
Yes. I
list
would-
of
Yeah,
things
that's
to talk about.
Yeah,
townspeople
absolutely.
Yeah.
concerned about this.
Yep.
No
I
doubt.
will convey the expected thoughts from the selectmen that these are
Yeah.
not adequate or appropriate.
Especially
I
after
hope
all
we were
this
direct
time.
enough.
Yes, I will convey that, and certainly I think
All
if it
right.
comes back up
Thank
with
you.
the senator and representative, that may
Thank
add
you.
some additional.
Did they mention the Freight House at all
No.
in there?
They didn't read the letter.
I don't know that they really did
Exactly, that they
a lot
didn't.
of their research on it.
Or their own report.
Right.
Yeah.
I referenced them back to it, and I didn't get the sense that there was a lot of research done
No,
on their end.
no.
It was more of they
was
realized
more-
they
Yeah.
ignored us for quite some time
Yeah.
and needed
Just
to-
tell them anything and
You
here
know,
you go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Delegate to his assistant.
I mean,
Give
you
him-
know, we love having it here because it brings people in. However, it does
Ooh,
create a
good
burden.
girl.
Because you have diesel smoke blowing and noisy trains and everything, and we get it. I mean, I live right there. I have to accept it. I bought my house knowing these things, so I'm okay with that. But it doesn't mean that the people in that neighborhood have to be ignored, or that the concerns of Rockport have to just be brushed aside because it's inconvenient for them. Sorry, I don't buy it. I'm not good with it. So.
And Mitch, even I would suggest that, I mean, my father was a trainman working out of that train station. I grew up on the old trains, going around the loop, backing them up and changing them around as a kid, my brother and I, riding them every night, that they move that freight house down and make it a visitor center for,
Even better.
you know, moving it down the line there and having it right where the old train station used to be. I think I have pictures of the old train station when my dad retired and when different people retired from the trains, the B&M, and having it as a visitor center for all of the people who come into Rockport on a busy Saturday and Sunday by the droves, and have that crane there and have a little exhibition, or have someone put some of the information of what Rockport, the historic of.
I can't think of a better place to
I
put an
can't either.
information
Yeah.
center, and
That's a
especially
great idea.
Right.
with that. I think
and
that's
move-
fantastic.
And move it right down there. I mean,
love
I'm
that.
sure there would be other people besides me in town whose families prospered and lived through those train
What's
stations
inside
and
there
stuff.
now? Do we know what's inside
I think
there?
it's just an empty
it just
building,
empty?
probably,
No?
just falling
I would assume
apart.
it's empty.
Yeah.
Do we have access to that?
I don't know.
Can we find out? Because I'd love to
Access to
go
the building.
kind of, not that I'm a.
Larry,
Hardware used to run it.
yeah,
Really? How long ago, Larry, do you know?
I've seen it,
That's okay.
not 100 years ago.
Right, right.
The last time I saw something
Yeah.
new was a couple of years ago.
Okay.
But I might-
I'll ask
that's an
Jay.
easy call.
yeah, I'll ask Jay.
Yeah, that's great.
But I mean, Bill Robinson, my dad, all the different people who worked out of there.
Feed and stuff.
Yeah, I think you did, yeah,
So we'll certainly check and see.
Yep.
I'm sure we can get access if we know.
yeah.
Great. Yes, she'll find out. What else you have?
So those are the highlights. So
That's it?
that's it for the moment.
All right, good.
Thank
Well,
you,
thank
sir.
you. And thank you
very
for what
much.
you're doing. You're doing a great job, Mitch.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, let's move on to the action list. The appointment of Kate John Shaw as a member of the Building Study Commission.
I move that the board appoint Kate John Shaw to the Building Study Committee for a term to expire June 30th, 2019.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carries 4-0. Let's go to the appointment of Frances Fleming as a member of the Rockport Cultural Council.
I move that the board appoint Frances Fleming to the Rockport Cultural Council for a term to expire on June 30th, 2019.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
nay. Carries 4-0. And let's move on to 3, accept the resignation of Ryan Trickett as a civilian dispatcher.
I move that the board accept the resignation of Ryan Trickett as a civilian dispatcher effective September 11th, 2018.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, and just extend our thanks to Mr. Trickett for his time with the police department. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carries 4-0. And then let's move on to a good one here. I like this one. Declare October 7th to 14th is Cape End Plein Air Week.
I move that the board declare October 7th through the 14th as Cape Ann Plein Air Week in Rockport.
Second.
Motion's been
Third.
made and double seconded. All in favor, say aye.
You get all paintings, right?
Is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
okay.
I'm sorry, further discussion? Nope. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, nay. Motion carries. That's great. Good for them. And last but not least, the one-day alcohol license for Harvest Fest. Is
I
there a
move-
motion?
I move that the selectmen approve and sign a one-day alcohol license for the Rockport Exchange on October 13th, 2018.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Further discussion here?
Can't
Another
wait.
good one. Yeah, this is great. We're
Let's
gonna-
order good weather and.
Right?
it'll be
Right.
Good.
Yeah, this is one of the great events that
Oh,
Rockport.
I
A lot
agree.
of them, but this is one of the
Yep.
top in my list. So
Yeah.
I love this.
Everyone loves it.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, motion been made and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries 4-0. Well, that's great. That's all of our regular business. What else do we have? Anybody have anything else to add? Other business, announcements, initiatives, projects?
Mr.
concerns?
Chairman, just a reminder, generally, work session next week on plowing private roads.
Yes.
I've
October
heard about
2nd,
that.
plowing
Yeah.
private roads.
I'm glad. This is one of those things that I'm glad that we're gonna, I want to make a decision on this. You know, that's at least my approach to this, is I would like to see, let's get it done. It's been out there too long.
Yep.
This is not, one of the tougher ones that we have to do, so let's get right on this and do what we can.
And then the
It may
following,
be confusing, but let's.
yes,
Yep.
certainly
You know, get
address
it
the
all
matter.
I know there's gonna be some spirited neighborhood input on this, so.
I expect so.
The parking ban is going to be exactly like it was last winter.
Unless the board makes any changes, that's the plan.
Nope.
It will be identical to last year.
Yep, no, everything's fine. And I will say.
No
and I-
emergencies, in other words, right?
Exactly, only when necessary. But it did result in a decrease in revenue for the police department because less tickets were being issued. So, I mean, that's a good thing. So that benefits the people in Rockport, and it's something that I don't think there was any detrimental effects. I think it all worked out well, so
Now,
that's
we
great.
know, as I've been saying for many, many years, we know at nauseum when a snowstorm's coming.
Yes, we do.
It's to the point where I don't even want to watch the first 5 minutes of news
Right.
because a storm is coming up the coast and so forth. So those days of these sneak up snowstorms, like the blizzard of '78, they were calling for 6 inches of snow, and then the two storms collided. Those they didn't have Doppler radar. No, so I mean it's great. I've heard so many times, and I want to thank Selectman Campbell because he really spearheaded this to get this through. I've heard so many people from downtown Rockport say thank you for really taking care of this because it's a right. I knew people that would get tickets at 45 degrees in the middle of January, which we sometimes have, unfortunately. They were getting tickets, so that was the right thing to do. So, thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that, that's fine.
I do have one other question.
Yeah, Ruthie, go ahead.
How are we doing on the kiosks? I know some person who was around this weekend and 4 kiosks, again, weren't working. They were all tagged. But are we, I mean, these are new.
Yes, and that's, those are, the new ones are actually the issue. The
Yeah.
new ones are the ones that seem to have some malfunctions. Sergeant Hurst, our traffic and parking sergeant, has been in very regular contact with McKay, and they have and continue to ship him out replacements. He had quite a phone call. I feel sorry for them after they got off the phone with him about probably about 2 weeks ago on what's going on with those new kiosks.
Yep.
So they've shipped him out new internal parts to try to get those in better shape. Those are surprisingly the ones that have had some malfunctions this season. The ones that have been in place for a year or two have been performing, barring running out of paper tape, etc. They've been performing very well.
So we can get them up to speed, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Sergeant Hurst is very responsive in coming out. Once he's made aware of it, he gets alerts on his phone. So if he's in the area, he does come out. But they are still a work in process for the couple of new ones.
I will.
Okay.
I will tell you that it is wonderful, especially when I leave early in the morning at 6:30, and you drive through Rockport and you just see a couple kiosks, you don't see all the
know, yeah.
meters.
It does look bad.
I know they're coming back for the Christmas season, which is wonderful, the poles and so forth, but it aesthetically, I think it's much better.
Yeah.
I love the trees, I
Yeah.
love that, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's great. Yeah, I'm sorry, Tom, go ahead, please.
So this coming Saturday, from 10 to 4, this Cape Ann Sustainability Fair will be held. That's at the middle school, O'Malley
O'Malley.
in Gloucester. And I'll be there at the table for the League of Women Voters, which does a lot of environmental stuff. But this is supported by the Green Community Task Force. We'd like to have a fair in Rockport someday, but this is for Cape Ann, so
Great.
just for awareness, it's a good event.
Has
Thank you.
the Green Community Task Force signed up for an update? Because they would qualify. Does that
I'm not
look
sure. I
good?
know that Deb's working through the rotation, so they will get, they'll be in at some point. I'm
Good,
not sure
and
where
Tom, you're still with that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, if you, maybe you could talk to them about that and set up a time with Debbie to get put on the agenda?
So
we could do
she's
that?
reaching out to everybody, so she's got a rotation
They're on the
going.
list.
She does?
She does.
Okay, I just want to make
She
sure,
does.
that's fine,
Yep.
long as we get that, that's
Yes.
great, thank you. All right, anybody have anything else?
Nothing.
That's good. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
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 It's all over. We're done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.